All right, well, welcome to the September 15th Commissioner Student Advisory Council meeting. This meeting is being recorded, as always, and we do have an interpreter available for our students who may be hard of hearing. So if you need to utilize the interpreter, you can pin that to your screen. Go ahead and continue. Hold on one second. Raphael, are you tuning in so you can continue to let people into the meeting for me?
On. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So just continue to let people in if you don't mind for me. We have a pretty flexible, I mean, it is a full agenda, but it is pretty flexible because we do have our new commissioner, Dr. Jason Glass, is with us. His first day on the job was yesterday, and he had a very full day. We also have a few other special guests. Dr. Lou Young, she is the chair of the Kentucky Board of Education. And we will have our Lieutenant Governor, Jacqueline Coleman, is going to be visiting with us as well. She is also.
Tony, I'm here.
Oh, she is here. Okay, didn't see you flicking. There you go. She is also the secretary of our education. It's a mouthful. Education and Workforce Development Cabinet. And they are first on the agenda. And so I wanted to just go ahead and welcome you all first. Lou, did you want to say a couple of words before we get started?
Sure, always. So good morning, everybody. It is such a treat. This is the highlight of my week for sure, getting to hang out with you guys for a little while. I want to just echo what Tony said earlier. Commendations to Kate and others who were on Kentucky Tonight last night. Using your voice, using the student agency that you sometimes have to develop almost entirely on your own is a critical skill. And so just being on the Commissioner's Advisory Council is indeed an honor, but it's also the opportunity for you to exercise your voice on behalf of other students. So when you're in these meetings, I just want to encourage you to think about all those kids who perhaps are still voiceless at your schools. What can you bring to the table on their behalf? Those kids whose first language is not English and perhaps wouldn't be well suited for this environment or would need additional support, but you can provide a voice for those peers as well. So I love this kind of work. I'm so proud of you. I do some research at UK around student agency and voice, and so I just commend you on taking advantage of this opportunity and joining in. And I know Commissioner Glass will be hanging on your every word. I have heard him say before that having students at the table makes those decisions so much more powerful, because he's engaged you in this conversation. So I can't wait for you to get to meet him. We're thrilled that he's here. So thanks for the few minutes, Tony, and thanks for including me this morning. I'm just going to hang out and listen.
Thank you very much, Lou. We appreciate it. It looks like Julian came in. Dr. Glass, did you want to go ahead and say a couple words?
I would. Thanks, Tony. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good to see everybody. I have had the chance to talk with Tony some about this group, and she just gushes with pride at the work that you do. So I want to make sure that I continue to support that. And Chair Young is absolutely right in that my experiences working with students in decision making is that when students are present and when the decisions are made, it changes what decisions are made. So having you advise me as commissioner, advise the Department of Education, I think will make us better agency and make me a better commissioner, because hearing your perspectives really does shift the decisions that we make. I wanted to just give you a small overview of my background, so as we get to know each other a little bit. I'm a Kentucky native. I was born in Louisville and raised in Meade County, or Brandenburg. My parents were teachers there. My dad was the assistant principal at the high school. My mom was a home economics or family consumer science teacher at the middle school in our community. I went to UK. I taught in the Hazard Independent System. But I've spent several years, 17 of the last 20, I think, living and working in Colorado at the Colorado Department of Education, or nonprofits, the school districts. I did work some in Ohio and Iowa, and a lot of time on airplanes during that period as well. But excited to get back to Kentucky and serve my home state. I still have deep connections to education here, in addition to just being coming back in this commissioner role. My sister's a teacher in the Metcalfe County system, and my brother works for Kentucky Educational Television. My wife Sarah is a teacher by training, and she spent about 12 years in the classroom now. She's taking care of our two kids who are NTI kids right now, but we hope that they'll be going back to school soon when things are safe in the Fayette County system. So we live in Lexington. My son Chase is 7. My daughter Nora is 8, and we're excited to be back in Kentucky and get to do this important work and hear your perspectives on how we can improve education in the state. So just a quick overview of some of my background. What I really hope to accomplish in the short term is support schools in whatever version of instruction they feel is right for their community. So some of those may be in NTI, some of them may be restoring in-person learning, and then we should expect sort of schools to have to go back and forth between the two as the fall progresses and perhaps into the spring, until we really get a vaccine in place and are able to restore in-person learning fully. So whatever form learning takes in schools, I think it's the responsibility of the Department of Education to try and support that, make it safe and make it quality, and support our school leaders and practitioners in schools and students in doing that. We also have important work to do around anti-racism and equity. The Board of Education has lifted that up as an important goal. So that'll be a major priority for me in this first year. In addition to sort of getting through COVID, working on that is a high priority. And we've already started tough work around budget cuts and reductions. The, um, the virus has created disruption to the economy in the state that leads to fewer tax revenues being collected in the state. So that then translates into budget cuts at the department level, really with all aspects of anything funded through state government is going to have to look at some trimming back, and that probably is going to flow through and impact schools in some level, although we'll do whatever we can to try and minimize and limit that. And then going forward, there may be budget cuts in the long run. So those are three really tough challenges to navigate here in this first year. But we're going to do our best to get through those and try to protect the experiences that you have as students first and foremost. So that's the most important thing, is the experiences that our students have, and putting that as protecting that and improving the quality of that has to be our primary goal. Looking long term, I'm really excited about working with this group to talk about what school could be in the state. So that's my aspiration, is to get through these sort of crises that we're living in right now, and then get us to a conversation around how do we really change school in a way that prepares you for the exciting, fast-paced, globally interconnected, automated future that is ahead for you. And how do we make school a place where you get to practice all the skills that you need to be successful in that exciting world that's ahead. So we'll get to that conversation soon enough. But I think today we got some discussions around our present status, how we get through NTI, how we restore in-person learning, how we do that safely. So I look forward to those conversations. Thanks, Tony. I'll turn things back over to you. And students, I look forward to getting to know all of you and work with you. And one last thing, the 3 students who did appear on Kentucky Tonight last night also echo what Tony said and what Chair Young said. You did a fantastic job with that, and I'm grateful and appreciative that you were able to support that program.
Great, wonderful. Lieutenant Governor, did you want to share a couple words before we get into the conversation?
Sure, I'm happy to. First of all, thank you guys so much for serving on this advisory council. It's so important to have your voice at the table. If you've ever heard myself or the governor talk about how we govern and make decisions, first and foremost, we want to bring everybody to the table, and that includes you. And a little fun fact: I can vouch for Dr. Young being committed to student voice, and also she really downplayed it when she said she does a little research at the University of Kentucky. I'll just give you that hint. But she was a superintendent when I was a teacher, and so I learned a lot of this from her. So I share her values, certainly for student voice and lifting it up and empowering you guys to help us move forward. I, like Tony, am really glad that Dr. Glass came back today. On his first day, we rolled out the new reporting protocols for schools around the coronavirus and positive testing. And then not too long after that, he was on Kentucky Tonight. So he had a whirlwind first day, and we're glad that he's here to support us. And so, you know, one of the things that this board is also committed to, in addition to all of those things that Dr. Glass just mentioned, is certainly student voice. And so we are one of the few states in the country who have added a student representative to our Board of Education. And so we've got the spot, and we will fill it. We just rounded out the professionals on the board not too long ago. And so we have a complete board now, absent one student voice, which we look forward to adding. And so we're committed to it. We want to hear your perspective. We want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly. We want to hear what affects you, but also what affects those around you. Because like Dr. Young said, lifting up others' voices is also very powerful. So I will stop there, and I'm anxious to listen in and to hear your perspective. So thank you all so much.
Okay, great. Yes, and then speaking about that student member on the Kentucky Board of Education, that's actually on our agenda this morning, because one of our students from this council will be the representative on the Kentucky Board of Education. So very exciting. We will be going over that. That'll be on the agenda item after this. And so just to kind of go over some of the things that we've come up with, and hope to have that name to the governor's office by the end of this week. And that first meeting that you will be attending will be in October. So things will be moving very quickly, and certainly Lieutenant Governor Coleman and Chair Young can tell you how crazy those board days can be. But it is quite a commitment, but it is very rewarding to be part of not just this council as you've found, but also as part of the Board of Education. So, all right, with that, I'm going to share the agenda just in case you all did not see the agenda. It is very brief. Julian Tackett from KHSAA is also here. He is also on our agenda this morning. I just want to make sure I have the right one here. Looks like we have. Let me know when you can see our screen.
We can see it.
Okay, perfect. So as I said, it's not a very not crazy town. I wanted to leave plenty of time for your discussion this morning with Lieutenant Governor and Dr. Glass, because they were very interested. They're very interested in hearing, particularly now since most schools all schools, I believe, have reopened in some format, whether it's NTI or whether you are returning, you are in person. They are very interested to hear how NTI is going, as well as mental health and any other educational challenges you are facing during this pandemic. We will then be going over just talking about Healthy at Sports, because many of you are athletes. If you're not athletes, you have friends who are athletes and other students in your districts and in your areas, parts of the state that are athletes. And then also, like I mentioned, we're going to discuss the selection of the student member to the Kentucky Board of Education. And then we will just briefly discuss some of your advisory project work. And then we will adjourn. And then the next meeting is on October 27th. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Glass and Dr. Coleman. Actually, I guess we can just start the conversation. Who wants to start off about talking about their NTI experience, or reopening? in the chat, why don't we start with talking about, tell me right now who has returned to classes and who is doing NTI, if you can put that in the chat for me. So we can get an idea as to who's doing what. And then if you all want to elaborate on that, raise your hand and we'll go from there and talk about how the reopening of schools has gone in your district. And we'd like to just hear what you have to say and just start the conversation. Go ahead and Jack, you can start. Jack is from Marshall County Schools. Make sure you unmute yourself.
All right, I'm sorry. It's really loud in my school right now, so I'm just gonna try and keep it on mute unless I'm talking.
That's okay.
So we've returned in person, like I said in the chat, and we've had 3 cases district-wide, and we're following all the mandates, and it's gone really well. We've seen tremendous positives out of this, socially. I mean, students are excited to be back in school, which we often don't see in the summers. You know, kids want it to be summer forever, and all of a sudden, school is becoming an outlet, a place that we can all unify. And that's very important because, you know, we've been apart for so long, and unity has really given us a sense of togetherness, and it's making us feel a part of something. And I feel like that's really important that school has provided us. And, you know, it's just different being in person. For this meeting, for example, I mean, I wish we were all in Frankfurt. We could see faces. It makes things a lot easier, a lot more comfortable. And that's what school has kind of done. Kids are willing to put up with, you know, wearing the mask and doing certain things that are different to get that sense of normalcy that school provides us. And I think that's very important that just school has provided us in this time.
Great. All right, who wants to go next? We can go with, I guess I'll just go at the top of my list. Caleb?
Well, hello, good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to, welcome Dr. Glass. Really glad that he's here. And then, of course, Dr. Young and Lieutenant Governor Coleman as well. So in Breathitt County, we have began the year with virtual learning. And for students who are not able to access virtual platforms, there are some alternatives there for them. However, it has went pretty smooth. The biggest issues that I've seen, you know, people have told me that they just don't learn well looking at a computer screen. And I think a large part of that is, you know, the lack of socialization, the lack of connection. And then also, you know, I've heard people say they just don't feel motivated to do work if they're not in that learning environment in person. And then also, in regard to issues, I've heard the complaint that it is disruptive, right? People leave their mics on. There's background noise. There are some communication barriers there. However, there are things that are going well in our district. Our guidance counselor at my school, at least, has set up a virtual office, and I know that a couple other schools are working to do the same thing so that, you know, those mental health needs can be met. And then also, you know, as I said, the synchronous learning is working very well for the most part, aside from, you know, general communication barriers. And then I'm really thankful here in Breathitt County that our educational leaders are really making an effort to bring student voice to the table. And then some solutions that I would like to brag on, if I can. I was really concerned going into this year about some of the students in my district who may not have access to quality food, who may not have access to nutritious food. And I'm really grateful that our district has put together a plan for meal pickup. And that's something that, as I said, it really was weighing heavy on me. I was really concerned about that. And so I'm grateful to see that need being met. Overall, though, things have went pretty well, and I want to thank you all for letting me speak this morning.
Thank you, Caleb. We appreciate that perspective. Roheen from Jefferson County.
Hello. So I'm from JCPS, and in the spring we started with NTI for the first time. It didn't go too well, but this time around it's been a lot better. We've been getting a sufficient amount of work. It's sort of like normal school again. Of course, we're not in person. We don't have that connection, but it's been a lot better than the spring. Some of the concerns, though, are definitely like still the internet issues. Sometimes people will get kicked out of classes and stuff. But other than that, I think JCPS has been handling it pretty well.
Great. All right. And it looks like Drake is having a hard time with the chat function, so I wanted to make sure. Drake, did you want to add some comments? I'm going to get IT working on that for you.
My school is playing like rock music right now, so you may not be able to hear me. But yeah, my chat function is disabled. But I just wanted to speak on how my school is using a similar curriculum for the NTI students. Can you hear me?
Do you want to, we'll put you last. Okay, sounds good. The next one, we'll go to, let's see, Trevin. Trevin is from Pike County.
Yeah, we started with NTI on March 13th, and we were used to it. We'd done it for several years, so we were used to it, but not months on end, consecutive days, and we just kind of got thrown into it. But this year, our teachers had time to organize and plan, and we have done work that, you know, is much better than what we were doing last year, just trying to get anything out there we could just to make it learning for the time being. And I just feel like it's went really smoothly. It's my third week going virtual, and our teachers, of course, have had their bad days and their better days. My mother is a teacher, and she's come home and said some days she just felt like crying. It's been so hard, but she said it's starting to get smoother, and they're getting more well equipped with it. So it's becoming a lot smoother as we go along the way, and I think it's went fairly well for the situation we're in Pike County.
Thank you very much. Peyton from Fleming County.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. So Fleming County has gone back in person, and so it's been a complete adjustment. But what we've noticed from the students at Fleming County High School is no one is selfish. Everyone is so selfless, and students just want to be here, be in this building. So no one complains about wearing their mask. Everyone wears it properly. Everyone's okay with staying the 6 feet apart. We just want to be in the presence of other students and be in the learning environment that we learn the best in. So students learn the best in the classroom, no matter the class it is. They learn better in the classroom. So students love it, the in-person, even though we do have to, like, what we've gone to is we've gone to like a block schedule. So Monday, Wednesday, we have the same classes, and Tuesday, Thursday, we have the same classes. And so our classes are now 2 hours long so that we can all go outside and take a mask break during each class period. So everyone has that opportunity to go outside, stay 6 feet apart, breathe in the fresh air in a routine, and just take off your mask. So the students love it. We're so happy that we've gotten to go back in person. Today's our first Monday. We started last Tuesday after Labor Day. So we're really excited and hope that we get to stay this way because the students are really enjoying it.
Wonderful. Anastasia from Oldham County.
Good morning. So in Oldham County, today is our last day for the entire county to be NTI. We started NTI on August 24th. Tomorrow, elementary school students will be starting in person, and middle school and high school will be doing an AB schedule starting September 28th. So half the students will be going Monday, Wednesday, and then half the students will be going Tuesday, Thursday, and Fridays will be alternating. In March, that last week before school completely went virtual, our county did a very good job of starting to organize how classes were going to work. There were still some complications with not being able to do every day like we are now. This year, it's been a lot more organized, especially for high school students. We are able to just be more involved in our classes, be able to talk more, be able to somewhat socialize. I do know a few things that at least me and some of my friends are missing is being able to actually see people in person. It's kind of weird talking to a computer screen the entire time. But other than that, we've been great, and we can't wait to start back in person.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. We'll go next to, is it Solayla from Ballard and JCPS?
Hi, yes, it's still Layla. I just wanted to add on. So I'm also from Jefferson County, and for the most part, my experience has gone fairly smoothly. Sorry. But I did want to also add a different perspective to it. The area that I live in, and a lot of the people that I go to church with, and well, not currently, but that I typically go to church with, are part of the low income class in Louisville specifically. And one thing that I just wanted to bring up is that so this past week I had a problem with my Wi-Fi, and it was going to be down for the day, and it was one of my busiest days for having class and whatnot. So I had to go to my mom's work, and I realized just in that moment that this is something that several students have to that I know of have to experience daily, which is something that I just wanted to bring to attention and to the table, just because it's I've realized how important and how impactful that could be on a student's ability to be able to actually feel present, feel involved, and just be able to learn overall. And also one thing, for the setting that I was in that one day, it was fairly loud. I was so worried that my teacher would call on me and there would be background noise and whatnot. And I think that's something just for all ages, especially little kids, that can be a very huge stress factor for them. And I just wanted to bring that up. And then another thing was, for the most part, I know that many of the districts have tried to provide Chromebooks or some sort of source to be able to complete their assignments or join meetings. But one thing that I've realized is that sometimes there are still some students that haven't been able to have full access to those these devices. And so one thing that I've also recognized is that can inhibit what they're able to do and not do during class, if that makes sense. And so one thing, I know this is specifically to a school that I go to and also just the district, but I've recognized that I have a little brother, and his teachers have been using certain platforms that are not always able to, to work with whatever device he may be using. And so in that case, it could be an iPad, it could be a Chromebook, whatever it may be. But that's another thing that I just wanted to bring attention to, because I've recognized how difficult it can be just for those students. So when there's this time that maybe from a teacher's perspective that they're like, wow, the student isn't participating as much, or why aren't they responding to me? Then I just wanted to provide that reference that sometimes it's because of those reasons. So I know that was a lot of talking, and I think I'm done for now, but thank you for listening.
Okay. All right, hold on one second. It looks like we have the interpreters back. It was a black screen there for a moment. Okay, Michaela, can you find the interpreter now? It looks like we should be good to go. Good deal. Thank you, Solayla.
Just so you know, Tony, there's another interpreter on as well. So when I go dark, the other interpreter's on.
Okay, who is the other interpreter?
Shannon Grider.
Okay. Michaela, there are 2 interpreters. So if you're pinning one, you might want to make sure that there's 2 of them. Okay. I'll have Raphael reach out to her as well. Okay, good deal. All right. The next person that would like to share is, I'm going to go back to my list here. Oops. I just eliminated my list. Stand with me here for a minute. Soyana from Eastern High School and Jefferson as well.
Hi, yes. So I'm Soliana from Jefferson County, and kind of just to piggyback off of what Roheen and so Layla said, Jefferson County did have some problems on its first day with some software issues. There were hackers, just to like clarify that. But I really do want to commemorate the faculty and all the teachers, because they made the switch to a whole new different platform after learning just one whole platform. And they did that so fast by the end of the week. So I just really just in appreciation for the faculty and how much they want this NTI to be effective. So you can really see through that they are trying and they are providing their all for NTI.
Great. Thank you, Soyana. Gracie from the Kentucky School for the Blind.
Hi, so I go to Jefferson County Public School Central High School for actually a majority of my classes, half days. And I actually spend a lot more NTI time on their work than I do my School for the Blind work. So, like she said, there were hackers. And so after our first day of NTI, which didn't work for me because I didn't have the right technology, we went a week just asynchronous days. Teachers ended up switching platforms, but it wasn't as smooth. I'm really glad it went smoothly for everyone else. But we actually had a lot of issues with it. We've switched platforms like 4 times now. Not everybody uses the same platform. It's just kind of all over the place. Whatever your teacher posts for the day is what you use for most classes. But they are really trying. I actually do agree with that. My teachers are really trying to keep us motivated and keep us on task. I don't know how well that's working. We actually have a pretty low, our students aren't really wanting to talk very much. So there's been a couple rough patches, but I agree that it's a little harder to learn this way, but I'm also glad that everyone's trying to do their best. So.
Okay. Thank you. Sophia Farmer.
Hello. So I am from Danville Independent, but I go to the Gatton Academy, so that's where I'm at right now. And it's been an interesting transition, especially because we have students on campus. So we've had some difficulty with having a mix of strictly online classes, hybrid classes, and strictly in-person classes, which has led to some difficulty because when you have roommates, it can be difficult if all of you all are on different Zooms at the same time. Like my roommate, she's in Russian, and so sometimes I have to go find somewhere else because she's speaking in Russian in the background. And we've had difficulties with like professors letting class out late, and so then you're in your dorm room and then have to run across campus to make it to an in-person class. But luckily, one of the things that's been really, really great is we've had pretty flexible attendance policies, and professors and teachers have been very understanding if you can't make it on time or if your internet cuts out or something happens and you're not able to make it right away or you can't make it at all. And they've been able to set up like Zoom rooms across campus for students to call in, which has been really helpful. And so far, like the Gatton community itself doesn't have any COVID cases, but Western as a whole does have COVID cases, and it's been a little scary because there's quite a few, and the campus at large is not doing a super great job, at least the students, of following social distancing policies and wearing masks. So that's been a concern, and as people have been like here longer, we've started to see people get more and more comfortable with each other and less willing to follow social distancing policies and walking around without masks at all and sitting together in crowded places in the food court. So it's been a little strange and a little crazy, but things are starting to get in the groove and we're starting to work out classes, which has been good.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Drake, are we still playing some Crazy Town or?
Sorry about that. My school district is offering 3 education methods. We're doing in-person, online, and then paper packets. I'm obviously doing in-person. And I just wanted to speak on how my district is using a similar curriculum for all 3 modes. And that's been really good in our transition for kids. Like in the event of a self-quarantine, I actually had to quarantine last week, all week, because I was tested. And so it was really easy to go home and be like right where I left off in person, and then this week going back to school and not missing much at all. And I think that that's really encouraged a sense of academic unity when we're divided with half our student body being at home and half at school. If we're all doing the same work, it feels like we're together when we're really not. But it can be frustrating because it looks a lot different than it has in the past, and all of our teachers are using the same like curriculum and platform, and so I think that's been hard on them for teachers that like to experiment and branch off a little bit. But overall, I'm really proud that our school has done that. And then I also wanted to bring up the techno-socioeconomic disparities, and just like how can we ensure that the students without internet access and adequate technology at home are receiving the same quality education and given the same priority. With paper packets, we have to quarantine the paper that are brought in, and so I just want to make sure that everybody is feeling like they're receiving the same priority at school.
And you're an athlete as well, Drake, correct?
Yes.
How many of you guys are athletes again? I know Anna plays soccer. If you guys can lower your hands real quick and then raise your hands if you are an athlete, just so I can, so everybody is part of the conversation, because Jillian Tackett is part of the conversation a little bit later, just so we can kind of know here. So if you guys can look in the chat now, you can see that we have several members of the committee are athletes. So in addition to being students, you're dealing with trying to go back to sports at some. Now, are you guys also fall athletes, or are many of you fall athletes, or are you still? I know Anna, you're soccer, so okay. We'll talk about that here in a little bit to talk about how that has gone for you. But I was just curious. Okay, so you can lower your hands unless you wanted to add something to the NTI and reopening conversation. Caleb?
Well, I just wanted to add that, and I don't think I mentioned this really in depth originally when I spoke earlier. Some of the same concerns that I'm hearing from Jefferson County are the same concerns on my end of the state in Eastern Kentucky. I think that, as Kentuckians, we're sort of in this fight together, and we've heard people say before that these issues are impacting people from the hood to the holler. So I know the other night, actually, before the KUT interview with Renee Shaw, my Wi-Fi went out, and I was scared because I thought, what am I going to do tomorrow if this issue isn't fixed? Luckily, though, things worked out, and I was able to get that taken care of. And I've said in the past that I rely more on my cell phone's hotspot than I do on my own Wi-Fi, and this issue is impacting young people in my area, specifically those who do live out in the hollers and who may not have a very steady income. They may not be able to afford a high package, and so it's difficult to look at that and to think that there are people here being left behind. However, I will say our district has done an excellent job trying to.
Oh, the I is bigger. And the L is longer. Oh, so the I is bigger
Sounds like
and short.
hold on a second.
And shorter.
Somebody might be not muted. Hold on a second. Somebody's doing NTI. I can hear it. Go ahead.
I'm sorry about that. So our district has been our district will start, or has been, or will start, I guess, allowing students to come into to the library each week in small family units, disinfecting between and after each person leaves. And so I think that's a great opportunity to meet the needs of students who aren't able to access Wi-Fi. So yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Cade, did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, so I was just going to talk a little bit about, what's going on in Floyd County, because really what a lot of the stuff I've heard other people say is absolutely what's going on here, as far as like the stress and the dissatisfaction. So, kind of to start, like Sophie was saying, I kind of have the college perspective at Big Sandy. And for our first 2 weeks, it was just really difficult to manage the time. I think, everyone respected the social distancing guidelines and was really tolerant of that. But as far as like the actual like coursework, and then having a not necessarily rigid schedule, but a schedule that needs to be managed with due dates and being on class, was hard to figure out and plan for. But for Floyd County's NTI, they started last week, and based on my cousins and friends that I've talked to, it's gone fairly smoothly. As far as the programming, but for the students and teachers, I think it's a lot of stress and dissatisfaction. I think a lot of students feel disconnected, from their peers, and then even from what a lot of their teachers are doing, which comes from a little bit of lack of social contact and a little bit of being online and not face to face. But with the teachers, I really wanted to talk about them, because I think it's been really tough. I know that one of my friend's mom works at an elementary school in the county, and she's had to pre-prepare a lot of her work online. And she was, even struggling with using the recorder on her computer, to video herself. So I think that, they may not have been as ready. That's not even necessarily their fault. It's just that they've not been experienced with the technology as long. But I think it's been very stressful for them to adapt to the technology that we're using.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Let's see. So let's see if we've had somebody who has not spoken yet. Let's move on. Lauren, I see Lauren there. Lauren Little. I know we have two Laurens.
Yeah, so at our school, we went in person for a short time and we're back virtual now. But when we were at school, it was basically the same thing as virtual. We did Google Meets, and because of that, more than half of our school switched to virtual. So I feel like we need to be in school. So I think we need to like have some sort of schedule where teachers can rotate or things like that, so people will be more interested in coming back to school when we are allowed to go back.
And now, Lauren, is Clinton County High School, are they going back on the 28th, or what is the plan right now? You're in Clinton County, correct?
Yes, I am. So we went in person for 2 weeks, but we actually had a rise in cases. So we're going virtual until after fall break.
Okay. And so for those of you that have gone back to school, I'm curious to know, with the masking issue, several of you have mentioned, I know Jack said that obviously he's wearing his mask right now, but has there been an issue, and also Peyton I see as well, has there been an issue with kids wearing masks, or has there been a shortage of masks at all? Have you seen any issues with that? Because we're trying to make sure we monitor that to make sure our schools have enough PPE. Have you all noticed anything on that end at all?
I'll talk about it. I have not seen any. On the first day that we went back in school, our school provided, I don't know if you can see it, these masks right here, they're reusable. I think that, I haven't seen anyone, obviously the nose, like there were people wearing them like that. We've had teachers monitor that really closely, and in the hallways, obviously that we've had to kind of keep track of that, but we have arrows in the hallways to where we're keeping circulation going the same way. And the teachers have done a really good job of just making sure that they're wearing the mask and that we're keeping everybody safe so we can stay in person as long as possible.
Okay. Anybody else who's gone back with masking?
I've gone back, and everyone, for the most part, has been very compliant. I've only seen a few students be reprimanded about it, and I haven't noticed like a shortage of masks. Everyone seems to have some, and I know we have like disposable masks in the office available every day. So
Are any of you all taking buses to school, or how are you getting, is it personal car, or how are you getting to school? Anybody taking a bus?
I'm not taking a bus, but I'm getting dropped off. But I do know kids that are taking buses, but I don't know the exact requirements on, and I don't know how that's going.
Okay. How about the temperature checks as you're coming in? Does that seem to be going pretty smoothly when you're coming in?
Yes, it seemed very fluid. You go up and you hold your wrist up, and there's obviously a temperature, and you walk through and get your bag checked like usual. It doesn't seem to be any blockage or anything like that. It's gone very smoothly.
That's really good to know.
Yeah, for us too. So the way that years before this, we would always have like maybe 1 or 2 entrances to the school in the morning, but now there's like 4 or 5. So drop-offs will go to one entrance, buses will go to an entrance, and then student drivers will go to another one. I think there's another one, but I'm not really sure. And so that makes like a less of a crowd. And then so drop-offs go to the cafeteria, which our cafeteria is pretty big, and then buses go to the multi-purpose room, and student drivers go to the gym. So it keeps everybody spread out. And then yeah, students are doing really good with masks. I think a lot of kids are getting used to them by now, especially the ones that have worked all summer, like with their jobs because they've had to wear them anyways. So they're used to it.
Great.
I have noticed as like we do more temperature checks and it's got smoother, bag check has not been as good. I think it's just not as thorough as it's been in the past because the main focus is getting a temperature check, and so I feel like our checks are just really cursory and not as effective. But we're still doing bag checks every day.
Okay.
We aren't even allowed to bring backpacks this year. So one of the reasons is so that we are carrying less from home to school. So all of our materials that we carry around during the school day, unless you have like your own personal computer, stays at school. So like the Family Resource Center provided every student that went back to school with certain materials, and you carry those around with you every day, and you're not even allowed to bring a backpack.
So how is that working out okay for you and your fellow students? Does that seem to work okay for you and everyone
I think it's going to be something that you just have to adjust to. Right now, it's undesirable because you can see students just kind of struggling to carry everything, especially when you've had a backpack for like us seniors. We've had a backpack for 13 years. So we're used to being able to bring supplies, put them in our backpack. But it also goes with school safety. So I think that as the longer we stay in person, the better it'll get. Kids will become more comfortable with carrying around their materials.
So in terms of, I guess everything, even though you're in school, the shift is definitely to digital, obviously for homework and things like that. They want you to make sure, even if you are in person, to not be carrying stuff with you so that, you can kind of log everything through Google or whatever platform that you're using.
Right. So every morning when you get to school, you pick up your Chromebook. And so where our class periods are so long this year, there's a designated part in each class that you do homework. So you have your instruction, you take your mask break and use the restroom, and then you have a homework type of the period so that you are doing the stuff that your teacher would send home during class. So nothing has to be done at home.
Okay, that's interesting. So as I see the comment or question in the chat, are students required to complete their assignments after they leave school, or how does that work?
So all assignments are done during the school day. The way that it's set up is no teacher unless you're in a college level class. So like a Moorhead English class or a Moorhead math class, you have to have all of your stuff done during the school day. And you're given the time to do so. So it's pretty good.
Okay. All right, let's shift over let's talk a little bit about mental health. Dr. Sweeney, are you available? Are you online right now? I'm not. He was going to try to join us.
Yes. Hey.
Oh, he is. I was going to have him do just a quick little check-in with us. because I'm not sure how long the Lieutenant Governor has, but I know she wanted to hear a little bit about this. But he's always so good about doing check-ins and having you guys do creative stuff. So can we do a quick check-in?
Yes, give me 1 second. Let me pull this up. I'll share my screen. Okay, let me know when you see a feelings wheel.
I can see it.
Okay, awesome. So students, I've already learned so much from you this morning. I keep telling everybody that I run into that meeting with you and learning from you is probably one of the most beneficial things that we do at the department. So thank you again. What we're really interested in is just as Tony mentioned, learning about where you are along with your friends and your educators. So the first thing I'd like to do is, in terms of you on a personal level, not thinking about you in the school building or doing NTI, just how are you doing? What the first word that really jumps out at you, put that in the chat box, please.
And this is for adults too.
For adults, yeah, I want
All of our
everybody.
activities are for
Lieutenant
adults.
Governor, we want to
Yeah.
hear from you. We want to hear from everybody. Tony, you as well. I always like to know, I think it's important for us to share. Again, I think it builds community, whether it's students or adults. All right, so let me see where you guys are at. All right, so I see some that are still stressed, still nervous, overwhelmed. We do have some hopeful folks, some folks that are just really busy right now. I keep hearing about your dual credit classes, which makes me happy. So I know that's not easy. It's keeping you busy. Wishful. Okay, if you would like, and if you feel comfortable, you can either come on and talk about why you chose the word that you did, or you can add that to the chat box. It'll take about 1 or 2 minutes for that.
All right, Trevin, you've raised your hand.
I chose hopeful because I think we need to have a good outlook on how we're going to return to school, and we need to be positive as we can about it because we don't know how long we're going to be there for. Like my district is returning on the 28th to in person unless there's a spike or something in the next 2 weeks. And we just need to be as positive as we can right now because we may be able to go 2 weeks and then something happen and we have to go back virtually.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Miles, go ahead.
I said frustrated, and wait, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I said frustrated. For me personally, juggling APs and juggling work, all these things eventually add up, and so it can be a little frustrating and stressful when you don't have so much support with you. I know a lot of other kids are having these same issues, and so I do wish there was a little bit more support from our teachers and staff there. And yeah.
Okay.
So Layla?
So I originally put overwhelmed because that's the first word that popped out, but I actually sort of agree with Miles. I would agree with the idea that like this sort of situation is frustrating. And I also thought the word perplexed sort of reflected my past couple of weeks with NTI. I think one thing about our experience is that, like, for example, my parents have been getting upset because I have so much work to do and I'm just upstairs, but I never see them now, which is something that I had a problem with a lot last year. And I mean, just throughout my high school experience, because I'm taking half of my classes are AP classes. And so there are a lot of requirements, but I think one thing, especially in this situation, is just that there's a lot of, although there is some help offered during the week from our teachers, some of the stuff that we have to do is more time oriented. And I think that's just been something that's a huge struggle for me and my family, because my brother will need help from me. My parents don't know what they're doing, and I'm like in the middle of a class and I can't necessarily stop and like help my brother at that moment. So that's just one thing. And I think the other thing is just that I really want to be able to go back to school, but in the moment I see that our some of the sports that are going on, any of their practices, they don't wear masks during like scrimmages or whatever, but that whenever they're on the sidelines they will. And so that's just another thing that sort of concerns me, because I want to be able to go back, but with the circumstances that some of our students have chosen to take or whatnot, it just makes things feel more uncertain, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense.
Yes.
Renuka?
So I said that I was hopeful because so far with my NTI experience, I didn't really have too many problems. I was comfortable navigating the Canvas platform and the Zoom. So I kind of agree. So though he's actually from my school, so he said that there's very little engagement and interaction between teachers and students, because in all of our classes, or most of our classes, we have the video off. So that's kind of something which I wish could be fixed right now. So so far I've been having a good experience other than that, and so I'm just really hopeful that as we get accustomed to NTI and the whole process, that this problem such as this can be fixed.
Drake?
I chose the word skeptical, and I think like even though we're making a lot of strides toward normalcy, there's like this looming sense of uncertainty and unpredictability around everything, and so I think it's hard to know if anything can change and how much will change in the coming days and weeks. So that's why I've been skeptical.
Understand. All right. Let's see who else has got their hand. Anastasia?
So I chose confident, but with a mix of stress. Confident might be kind of a different word to be using right now, but I'm confident that I'm getting the education that I need throughout this experience. But for me personally, I am in AP honors, advanced classes, and it's starting to weigh on me a little bit. So it's just a stress factor added on to knowing that at least I'm getting the education that I need. Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to go next? I think I have Gracie.
Sorry. So this is part of my stress. I chose the word stressed because I'm actually doing a lot in school this year. So I've been I was chosen for, other than this, a Title IX committee for the the North Central Association for Schools for the Blind. So I'm trying to juggle both of those things and sports as well as my schoolwork, which is very stressful. Both of my parents also work during the day, so I tend to have to help my younger siblings. My younger cousin is staying with us this week, and I'm trying to do that while doing my own schoolwork. And teachers are also assigning way more all of a sudden than they were the past couple of weeks. And another thing is just the lack of communication, I think, is a big part of my stressor. So it's just a little overwhelming. I chose stressful because it's an umbrella term, and I have a lot of emotions that fit under that right now.
Thank you for sharing. Layla?
Okay, so I chose the word stress to describe how I was feeling. Most of my stress comes from just take some AP classes, and the way our classes are set up is that either you can teach for 40 minutes 2 times a week, or I think it's 80 minutes once a week. And so with our 40-minute classes, it's kind of difficult to kind of get settled in the class because you have to go pretty fast, like through the content. So at times it feels like I'm not really retaining the information that like I've learned, if that makes sense. So that makes me stressed for AP tests in the future. But other than that, we rely on Google Classroom a lot for our assignments. And sometimes it feels like I have assignments that I don't know about or that I didn't see. So it's really stressful to just make sure that you're staying on top of all your assignments and getting them all done.
Thank you very much, Layla. One more, Logan. Oh, and then I've got, looks like we'll have Lieutenant Governor in just a second. But Logan, go ahead.
Hi, I chose hopeful. Just like sitting around and hearing all of everybody else's struggles, but also how their school districts are adapting and kind of proving through these hard times. It's definitely given me hope that we'll soon be back to at least a new normalcy, whether that is in person or hybrid schedule. But it's it's comforting knowing that we're all in this together and that we're experiencing these same struggles no matter where we are in the state. So that's why I chose hopeful.
Thank you, Logan. Lieutenant Governor.
Okay, I just have a quick question before I have to go. And so I'm going to lean on Dr. Young and Dr. Glass to follow up with me on anything that we may need to discuss further. But, I'm hearing the frustrations between the uncertainty in terms of this just being a whole new thing for everybody. I'm hearing about lack of Wi-Fi or folks who understand how to use technology fully. And so those things are they're not surprising, but it's good to hear each of you express that. But one question I have is, and I have to think 5 steps ahead here, as we transition out of this pandemic, because we're going to get out of this. We have to actually make decisions about what is worth going back to. Right. So, a lot of this stuff that you're talking about is, I want things to be normal. I want to go back to the way things were in terms of socializing and what we know to be school. So my question to you would be, what are things that this experience has created in your school that you want to hold on to?
Feel free to jump in, whoever wants to jump in. Trevin?
Yeah, I never thought anything like this would really happen. It's never something you could imagine. And it's just like we took for granted being there together every day and be able to socialize. And now that I've missed out on a fourth of my sophomore year and already a month of my junior year, I will always hold on to being able to see my friends every day and getting the best education we can, being in in-person classes when we can be.
Great. Who else would like to jump in? Go ahead.
Let me just say here, Lieutenant Governor, in my school, I think that we all sort of took for granted everyday experiences. And so it means a lot to me now that when we are able to go back, that, people will really treasure and value those socialization experiences, just the general experiences of going to school. Especially, I'm a senior, so I'm missing out on quite a bit, I feel. However, it does not compare to some of the struggles that other people who are battling COVID-19 are experiencing. But I'm really glad to see that during all of this, my school has really started to place an emphasis on mental health. And I'm really thankful to see that my school is starting to incorporate student voice more. And so I think that as we move forward, an emphasis will be placed on student voice, bringing students to the table when decisions are made. And at our last meeting, I believe we talked about that and how important it is to have a student council at your school. And so the administrative team at my school, especially my principal, Mr. Davidson, assistant principals, Miss Lively and Miss Noble, they've really been working with me to get that rolling, to get that started. And then once again, I'm just hoping that everyone will really take advantage of and treasure the daily experiences of going to school. So thank you.
All right. Who wants to go next?
I can go if you don't mind.
Sure, Logan.
I think that one thing that we've really gotten out of this is this idea that we can do school in person and away synchronously. So that idea of if you're missing a day, you don't have to be so far behind is very, I think as a student that's really involved in a lot of things, that's really reassuring to me at least that I'm not going to be so far behind if I miss 2 days of school. Another thing that I would really like to echo from Caleb is that the student voice factor in it all. And I think that before we go back to school that I would like my board at least to consider what the students think, what the teachers think, and what the parents think before they make the decision. Do we go back in person? Do we do a hybrid or do we do NTI?
Great. Miles?
Shoot. So what I'd like to say is that I think that like this shows us that we can use online as another tool when we do get out of this. So like you could take like snow days, for example. Like we don't have to worry about having to cancel school again because we can use this as an opportunity to continue school. And there are plenty of other examples out there where we might be out of school for this reason or that reason. So I think this just shows us what we can do when we have technology in our toolbox.
That's a really great point. I mean, I wonder how, maybe the snow days or when schools are out for flu, how better those days are going to be, perhaps because of this experience now. So that's a great point. Roheen?
Yeah, I think so. Layla mentioned this in the chat as well, but the teachers have been giving out work ahead of time so we know what to expect. And I think that's one thing that, or assigning work ahead of time so we know what to expect. So I think that's one thing that they can definitely do when we get back. So we're not always so overwhelmed, I guess. We know what's ahead. Another thing is, as Caleb mentioned, mental health. Teachers have been prioritizing that more, doing like weekly check-ins and stuff. And finally, sort of like a sense of unity because we're all in this together. People have been more kind and compassionate towards one another. And I hope that's something we can carry back in once we return in person.
That's great.
That's so good to hear. Yeah.
Drake, did you want to add?
Yes, I've just seen a lot of my peers take a newfound interest in their own education and leave their apathy behind. And I just hope that we can continue to see students and parents and all involved just taking like a true interest and investing in their own education at a personal level after the COVID-19.
That's great. Jack? Jack, we can go to you if you can't. Can you hear
All right,
us?
sorry, I was trying to unmute. I have a question for Dr. Sweeney. I put it in the chat, but I feel like it's very relevant for a lot of other students in here. So I live in a rural area, or well, more rural than urban area. And doing that a lot of distance and isolation in my community. How as a leader, like in my community, in my school, can I provide access to different like how can I provide outlet to students that need help and just don't know it, or if they're too scared? Because I feel like in these rural areas, it's more important. Like it's less talked about in our school, but there's a lot more of it than I guess we expect. If I worded that correctly. Does that make sense, or do I need to reword that?
No, you're fine, Jack. Great question. I've spent a lot of time in some different rural counties in Kentucky. Just in the past couple of years that I've been at KDE, and I will tell you that as you may or may not know, I do a lot with school counselors, and so one of our big the big thing that we continue to tell our counselors to do is to continue to check in with students. They should be checking in with students individually and families. And if they can't get a hold of a student or a family consistently, there's something called well checks that they can do, and they can have basically a local police department go and check on a student or family just to make sure that they're okay. So so that's when you become really concerned. Other than that, we've been telling our mental health professionals, including our school counselors, our school social workers, school psychologists, that they should be doing lessons. They should be pushing lessons to you guys, pushing lessons out to you guys. One thing that I've been extremely concerned about, even before COVID hit, is that so many of those school counselors weren't able to get into classrooms because they were tasked with so many different things that had very little to do with mental health. So they might be tasked with doing testing, or sometimes even focusing on behavior, just so many different things. So we're asking them to do those lessons to help normalize depression, help normalize anxiety. What we know is that many students that experience those things feel like they're on an island, that they're absolutely alone and nobody else is going through the same thing. But what we know will happen once our folks normalize those behaviors is then our kids will realize, well, wow, while I thought I was alone, now I realize that 1 in 5 kids that are my age are experiencing the exact same thing. We can bring these topics out into the open. We can have these conversations, and we absolutely should.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. So I just wanted to let you all know the lieutenant governor had to hop off because she had to go to another call. So she wanted to thank you all very much for sharing with her your observations. And as she mentioned, she'll be getting back with us and, hearing more comments from you as we meet with this council in the future. She's been very much involved, with Student Voice, as she mentioned. So I would anticipate she will probably be joining us for some more meetings. I did want to go ahead and I wanted to make sure that Michaela's comments were put into the record because I think she was having some hard time getting the video to work. So I wanted to go ahead and read her comments about NTI. So Michaela she is a student at the Kentucky School for the Deaf, but she lives in Hickman County. So I believe they've been doing and she's been doing NTI and then also going to in-person in Hickman County. And she says that her experience has been stressful. Being a deaf person in a hearing school can be difficult. Everyone wearing masks isn't very helpful for me, especially that she reads lips. Some teachers wear the see-through masks, but most of them don't, which makes it very difficult. Most students aren't doing the social distancing as much as they should. The hallways have become a huge problem for the school, and rotating class a lot. Students are not social distancing as they should. She believes that the NTI with the Kentucky School for the Deaf has been great, but the things are very different in person. She says Monday through Friday, they have 2 to 3 days with the Kentucky School for the Deaf. And this school also gives them less screen time. And that way we are not looking at the screen until the afternoon. So I think that's a really great perspective. And that's one thing I love about this group so much is that you all bring such great and different perspectives to each other. So I hope that that's one thing that you take away from this group as well, from other students who learn differently or may have different needs than you do, and to take that into consideration and take that back into your districts as well. So thank you very much, Michaela, for sharing that with us. Going back to other people who have their hands raised, I see Caleb, you had your hand raised.
Yes, I actually wanted to add on or to I guess mention sort of what Dr. Sweeney had said just a minute ago. I hope I pronounced your name right. I'm sorry if I didn't. Our guidance counselors do have a lot of responsibilities, and I was really grateful yesterday to receive a suicide prevention training in one of my classes. And we had a very detailed discussion with our teacher. She facilitated a discussion, I guess you would say, about suicide and about the importance of, addressing, mental health needs, especially in regard to depression, and just reiterating that, no, you're not alone when you're going through those dark times. My grandparents have always taught me that you don't grow at the mountaintop. You grow when you're down in the valley. And so I try to carry that with me as I struggle. And I'll be honest, it has been difficult. The socializing and talking to people is really one of my favorite things to do. I love to meet with others and that type of thing. And then also, I just wanted to add, after hearing the perspective that you just mentioned, Tony, I'm really grateful that as a council, we work well together and that we're willing to take each other's perspectives back to our schools and our home counties. And I think that overall, and actually, as I mentioned yesterday on Twitter, we really do work as a team. And I wholeheartedly believe that teamwork does make the dream work and that we are in this together, though we are from different geographical locations in the state. So, yeah.
Tony, can I just mention, Caleb, I'm so glad that you brought up suicide prevention. We worked really hard to make that more engaging this year. But something that's coming that I'm really, really excited about is we've also partnered with KET, and we'll have what we're calling a suicide prevention refresher that we're recommending will be offered right before Christmas break, because we know that suicide prevention shouldn't just be something that's done once per year prior to September 15th because of a legal mandate. We know that it should be an ongoing conversation. So we're really excited to be able to provide that to students. And one thing that we're pushing in that refresher is that more students lend their voice to these issues. So there are more projects that are done within our schools where we hear from Salela and we hear from Drake and Gracie, and they're able to communicate to their peers how mental health issues are normal and how kids can different ways that kids can become resilient.
And I just want to add that, that was feedback you all provided for us, last month. That was additional feedback. And that's why this council is so important. I mean, obviously I tell you how proud I am all the time of you, but I am just beaming with pride of how you all share. I, of course, am partial because it's my favorite council, but you all talk so much and you share. And I couldn't be prouder of how you all collaborate and share your time. So I just want to say that. And I know Damien feels the same way. And I'm sure Dr. Glass will feel the same way after he leaves this meeting today. And same thing with Dr. Young as well. Go ahead, Gracie. Did you want to add something?
Yes, we actually did a suicide prevention training earlier this week, and I was actually a lot happier with it than I have been in previous years, even though it was over NTI. I did it with a teacher instead of a guidance counselor this year. We watched a video, we talked about it, we had a couple slides about it, and they tried to reinforce the idea that they weren't just doing it as a legal thing and that they actually cared about their students. And I think that was very helpful to push the conversation.
Great. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap this portion up. And Julian, are you still with us, hopefully? If not, I'll ping him here in a second. Our next item on the agenda is the Healthy at Sports, and just talking a little bit about the guidance that we've given as it relates to sports. I think he's still in the meeting. He might have gotten called off on a call, so I will shoot him a text if for some reason he's not there. If somebody else let's see here. Hold on one second. If somebody else wants to add, I think I had another hand in the air, unless we have.
Let's try it now, Tony. Can you hear me?
Were you on mute?
I was. I
Go ahead.
pulled a Tony. I did pull a Tony.
That's all right. Or Kevin. We can talk about him since he's not here anymore, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, go ahead, Julian. I didn't really have a PowerPoint or anything for you. I just wanted you to give an opportunity to talk to the kids. I don't know if you had heard earlier, there were several that indicated they are athletes. And go ahead, if you want to go ahead and in your chat, if you are an athlete, if you can put down which sports you participate in, because I think that would maybe help others, because we'll learn a little bit more about you as a person, and then I'll also help us with the conversation. But in the meantime, Julian can kind of tell you a little bit about where we are with sports in the state, and I'll let you go with that.
Well, I'll try to keep it fairly brief because I really enjoy listening to the kids. We lost an event in August that I hope some of these kids have had a chance to go to, some of these students have had a chance to go to. We have a student leadership conference every year, and we really relish that day. It's a day we don't have to argue with moms and dads and coaches and adults that are experts or think they are. And we get to have 600 to 1,200 kids over 2 days that are student leaders in athletics. And obviously with group meetings, that was not possible this year in August, and we really missed it. We did have several attend a national conference for us, representatives, but it was, of course, digital or online. And that's not the same. I've heard that tone continually through this morning. You know, we're all trying to balance whether we feel safe, but we also, you know, whether or not we feel safe, but then we also know we can't just hole up in our homes until all this is over. We've got to try to balance. That's the balance we've been trying to strike. When the hardest thing that I've been involved with and been involved in this office for a couple of semesters, and the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with was when we had to call off spring sports last year. And when that happened, it's people like yourselves that we kind of redoubled our efforts and said we were not going to let that happen again, whatever it took, whether it's masks on fans or masks on people on the sidelines, distancing in the stands, whatever it took. We wanted the students to be able to have a competition opportunity. Started back official play last week. We probably batted like NTI did last week. We probably batted about 75, 80%. A lot of people were fine-tune things. They'll get better at hosting events. But I know that at some point we absolutely needed to get the students back engaged in sports. You all have hit on all the issues that we were not only involved in studies with all summer, but reading the data about the depression and other anxiety related things that came up because of the sudden change in last school year. And these years are so formative for you all that all of us in positions like Dr. Young and I and others and Dr. Glass, any of us, we're custodians of a really critical time of your lives. And we take that very seriously. There are some out there who would have said, well, just the heck with sports. We can't be safe. Let's just don't worry about it. And we thought that would cause more harm than good. So some of the things that are doing are, they're not easy, and they're not what we hope 2021-22 looks like. If we're looking with the optimism some of you said, we have tried to tell people all summer long that next year will hopefully look more like 18-19, but 2020-21 is just going to look different. You know, fans in bleachers with masks on and temperature checks at the door. But thank heavens, most of us are getting used to that. We're getting used to, that's just the norm for right now, but we call it a temporary norm. If you ever get a chance, our website, khsaa.org, has over on the COVID-19 tab, has all those return to play guidance, and they may just apply to your AD, they may apply to you. We hope that you are not only appreciative of the opportunity, but that you give feedback and realize that the answer is, and you all hit this earlier, I don't have to say this, the answer is not to say that tomorrow we turn a switch on and it's going to be just like it was last year. That's not going to happen till we can get ahead of this, get our communities ahead of this virus. And I found it really interesting, the comments from the students at the Gatton Academy, because we have our first championship event is supposed to be in Warren County this year. And it's going to take some community effort for that to be able to happen, because we know what Warren County's going through. And we know there's some carefreeness about college that maybe makes people take things not so seriously. Maybe symptoms aren't so strong. Maybe whatever the reasoning is, maybe they're too busy listening to their parents' politics. Who knows? why people don't take it serious, but we hope those areas tighten down a little bit and we can have a true statewide sense of normalcy with championship play. But the most important thing is that you get to play back home. So we've got that guidance coming out tomorrow. Our board will decide about winter sports. I suspect we'll start practice just a little bit late, but not much. Not much, because we think that if we can get the bulk of this, not only start of fall sports done and let the schools get used to all those new procedures, but let the 28th get by after a lot of people are going to try to go to school in person, and then let's move to the next phase. Particularly intrigued by comments earlier about people that are hesitating. I want to be sure you understand when you look around that sometimes the participants are not wearing a mask, but the everybody else is. And that's a really tough point, that there's been a lot of research done worldwide from the Olympics on down about the need for athletes that are fully exerting and lungs are swelling to be able to breathe clearly and not have the mask inhibit them. That's really the only exception, is the people that are actually in the game. And then, of course, there will always be the language, the same thing that's in the Department of Ed language, the same thing that's in ours. If someone's medically wavered, there are occasionally people who it is harmful if they wear a mask, and schools will make good judgments on that. But it's tough, because you look out there and you're in the stands wearing a mask and the player's not. But then when it comes to your competition, I'm looking at the various sports I've been down through here. When you get to pole vault next year, when someone else gets to participate in track and field, somebody else gets to wrestle, hopefully in the winter, that person won't have to wear it, but everybody else will. I think until this is over, that's what you're going to see. It's strange to look up, I'm sure, from let's put it in perspective. I didn't notice it scrolls by so quickly. That I didn't notice if anyone played football, but I doubt if any of our football players planned on wearing the face shields, not a face mask like you see out front, but a face shield behind your mask to try to prevent aerosol spread. They're supposed to keep their mouthpiece in and not take it out. That's so they don't spray it. Football got all the publicity this summer, but in reality, the two sports that we're worried about the most are getting ready to start, and that's competitive cheer and wrestling. And that's because every study keeps talking about aerosol spray. Some of you probably remember when all of this started, the scientists told us, don't touch anything. You got to wash your Amazon box that comes in. You got to wipe off your mail. Well, now they're realizing that we're much more concerned with how people project. And that's why the mask is so dang critical. That's why you got to walk up behind your buddy and poke them in the ribs and say, put that mask on. Come on. You got to do whatever you can do, because for us to keep going, we got to have that. But we found out it's through aerosol. Well, we have some of the best cheerleaders in America, but in some of the routines they do when they're face to face, and remember, in order to be judged well, they've got to be projecting very loudly. They're supposed to be screaming. That's a challenge. So we're going to, it's going to be, even when that starts, there's going to be a little bit, and I'm not talking about Mr. Bashir, there's going to be a little bit of a governor on things. And if you all aren't familiar with that, it's something they used to put on old cars when I was growing up and Dr. Glass was growing up. We governed the car down to slow it down a little bit. So you may have to, see things that are unusual. We're worried about choir and music for that reason. One of the first things that was recommended to be shut down was about church services and singing. Well, I don't know about you all. Everybody's faith is their individual belief. I grew up in a Methodist church. We sang 4 times every service for 50 some years. I mean, that's what we do. But we've had to slow that down too, because we don't want to share. If we happen to be that person that has that has the virus but doesn't show any symptoms, we don't want to share that. We want to share everything else, but we do not want to share that virus with anybody. So we've been driven by science. We haven't been driven by fear. We've probably got people on the call that wish if you could have just held off, et cetera. But the science didn't tell us to do that. So we're trying to delicately balance all of the negative mental things that could potentially go on and the potential physical. It's a real challenge. We followed through with the Kentucky Music Educators. We helped a little bit with them. Dr. Strobey does a great job with Kentucky Music Educators. And I know they really struggled with their return to play. And There's even a national study going that we have published on our website about the different things you can put on instruments to keep aerosol from potentially spreading. But it all wraps up into we're having to study the science to talk about sports, and it's not something a lot of people are used to. They just want it like it was last year, and that's going to be very difficult. So we'll keep. When y'all are all probably driving now, but when you drive more, you'll find somebody that has their foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. There's people that drive that way. I think that's kind of the way we'll be with sports. We'll be let's go, but let's don't go too fast. And but between cheerleading and wrestling, which we know that the real struggle with wrestling is if there is a touch transmission, you are almost continuously for 6 minutes touching the same person. With 3 2-minute periods. So we've got to look at some modifications there. We'll be talking about that tomorrow. We want you all to participate. We want all these students to participate. Talk about something daunting. Try going to sleep when you know that you're in control of activities for more than 100,000 people. And any decision you make could lead to their grandma getting sick or their kid having mental illness. And there's no good positive path. You've got to try to study the science and do the best you can. So that's what we've tried to do. I know that's what Dr. Glass and his staff do. I know that's what Kevin and his staff did. So we'll continue to try, but it's going to be different. You're going to see people spaced out. You've probably already been to volleyball games or seen volleyball games where they're seated on 2 different rows for the bench, so everybody can spread out there. I noticed last night I was watching a local broadcast on the NFHS network of a local volleyball game, and they warmed up in masks. They only took them off for the competition. And I think you're going to see unusual things as everybody tries to say, what can we do? How can we be healthy at sport and still play sport? And so that's what we try to do. So I'd much rather hear if you all have any questions or anything come up. So I think there's the one thing that I'll tell you that yesterday, and we knew this was coming because we've actually had this in our guidance. You know, one thing you're going to have to get used to probably if you're involved is you may be hyped up and excited about a particular game, a particular event, a place you're going to go. And then that week there's an outbreak in that county and you don't get to do it. But we're hopeful that we can strategically allow those things to be canceled, not saying that everybody from Fulton to Ashland have to cancel. Let's deal with the areas that are having the trouble. And then when they're doing better, there's some other area we'll deal with. And I think that's the framework we've tried to create. So Tony, I'll leave it up to you. I'd love for you to moderate if they have any questions and see if anything else I can help them with. A great group. I could listen to this all day.
They are a great group. So we do have a couple of hands raised. I will start with Trevin. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm from Pike County, and we had our first football game last Friday, and I don't really have any questions. I would just like to brag on the guidance that was put out because our schools, they socially distanced. They took your temperatures as you walked in. Even with the football, they would start when the play would be called, and they would trade the footballs and clean them. I mean, it was just constantly keeping everything sanitized and clean, and I think the guidance that has been put out for Healthy at Sports has been really good. And it's up to us if sports wants to continue to play like you said. I mean, it falls down to us to wear our mask and to take care of each other.
Well, first of all, let me say one thing to you, Trevin. As a guy that was born out of Pike County, Floyd County blood, my mom and dad, it's good to hear you talk. I love it. You talk like me, and I love it. You don't ever change.
Thank you.
Jack, go ahead. Jack's from Marshall County. So from east end of the state to the west end of the state.
Yeah, that's 2 pretty good extremes. Don't go there for a win game.
I was just going to say, I didn't even plan that. Jack, you're muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was having trouble unmuting.
That's okay.
So on behalf of all Marshall County and from the athletic director here, I want to thank you, Mr. Tackett, for just working so hard to make sure we have these fall sports because it really is important to the entire state and all the schools. I just think it's really important that we keep them open and that we keep adapting to the different situations because athletics provide so much. I mean, they provide enthusiasm and they get people excited, and it just increases the school spirit of the actual students. It keeps certain kids out of trouble, and I feel like that is often overlooked with sports. So it just provides like a different situation. It gives you somewhere to be instead of at the party or doing something that you shouldn't be doing. Also, it decreases mental health completely. I mean, it's really hard to understand. I mean, being enthusiastic and excited, it lowers your stress levels. And cheering, if you're not actually playing, you're cheering on your friends, you're cheering on your classmates, and it just gives you something else to talk about whenever you get back into school. Hey, good goal last night, doing stuff like that. I know we had our first football game Friday too. We had soccer games last week, and we haven't seen any increase in cases yet. So I think that what we're doing right now is working. So I think we need to keep that up. It also brings our community together. And going back to normalizing everything, I know Marshall County, we were voted the best student section last year in all of Kentucky. And that's a big part of our school. And having that student section this year, and it's normalizing everything. It's giving the seniors something to look forward to in this really hard time for them. And I think it's just really important that we keep it open and keep it going, because this really is a big part of our culture. And yeah, thank you.
Great.
Thank
I will
you.
say Jack is a sophomore, so to rep the seniors so well is pretty respectable.
Absolutely.
Let's go ahead to Anna in Anderson County.
Hi, I first want to thank you for your efforts to push forward fall sports. For me, I'm a senior, and so this year is crucial for my recruitment for collegiate soccer. I also have diabetes, so that has been hard to manage. My parents have told me that I have to wear a mask when I play in order for me to play, so I have to deal with that setback. But my concern is just, especially from my county, I have seen compliance going to the game, but I haven't seen it during the game, and that scares me, especially when I'm making that effort to protect myself and my teammates, and then people are getting relaxed with it. So that's concerning. But overall, especially in Shelby County yesterday, they made sure every 10 minutes to remind people to wear their mask and social distance. So that was nice to hear, and hear them advocating for it. And I think just as a group, we can just remind our counties and the areas that we are in to wear our masks, so that way we continue to go on with sports safely. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's a really good point. And I know Julian touched on it a little bit too, but as student leaders and even as student athletes, to make sure, even when you see something, to encourage, look, if you want this to continue, to make sure you are wearing the masks and to do the social distancing. So I think those are very good points. Caleb, go ahead. Caleb is in Breathitt County.
All right. I'd like to thank you for providing us with some information, Commissioner Tackett, and also for joining us today. From the get-go, my concern was not with KHSAA guidelines, but rather the implication of those guidelines in individual counties, and with that, the following of guidelines in individual counties. Growing up in the household with my dad being, a basketball, volleyball, baseball, softball coach. He also was an athletic director for a little while. So sports has always been really important to my family. And my dad, thinks the world of you. I mean, you're one of his heroes, Commissioner Tackett. So I have talked with some people in my area, actually expanding out from Breathitt County and on into other counties in the KDE District 7 that I represent. And the biggest concerns that I've seen are, of course, contracting COVID-19 during playing, ensuring that those guidelines are being followed. And a seventh grader actually told me that, he felt that being able to play football again was really important to him, and that it was really great for his mental health, and that he was really thankful to be able to socialize with his peers in that setting. And I actually, as I mentioned in the chat, I do some work with a sports media company called Bluegrass Sports Nation in our end of the county, or in our end of the state. And last week I attended a football game in Estill County, and I was really, really impressed with the system that Estill County has in place. Not only when it comes to ensuring that fans are safe, but also ensuring that coaches and student athletes and media remain safe as well. And then last night I actually attended a game in Breathitt County, a volleyball game, and I was very impressed with the system that they have in place as well. COVID-19 screenings are included with the ticket for admission. And so I'm really grateful to see that these guidelines are being followed, at least from what I've seen. And I just wanted to add that. So thank you.
Well, first of all, your dad needs to get out more. But no, I'm just kidding. I respect, been here a while and certainly like to deal with these kind of things as much as anything. I do want to make one point, though, because one of the things that we committed to early on was that we would neither be first nor last with what we did. And so we very carefully observed what was going on in other states that were playing early. And whether or not athlete-to-athlete transmission, which is not occurring, that's something that's been very reassuring. We're not seeing any evidence, nationwide or local, of athlete-to-athlete transmission. The challenging part, and I don't know how many of you are professional sports fans, but the challenge has been what people do after the practice or after the game. Some of the early shutdowns of Major League Baseball and some of the other professional sports were because of social clubs that athletes went to, and they got out and they got in the wrong group. And so it is a challenge, and the people your age are doing a fantastic job of trying to do that. So I appreciate you bringing that up. But that is something that everybody should worry about, and you just have to decide. I thought Dr. Capilouto put it the best 6 weeks ago, and certainly Tony's heard me say this in too many meetings, but we have two choices, and that's to hole up or live in a COVID world, and we're trying to figure that out. But I'm glad that you're seeing some good compliance. It's only been 1 week, so I'm sure there's people that will be better next week as they go along. Thanks for making that comment.
So there is a question in the chat box from Logan. He was wondering, he's curious about who takes the liability if a student athlete gets COVID-19. Did they have to sign a COVID-19 waiver? Does it fall on the coach? Does it fall on the school or KHSAA? I'm not sure if Julian, you want to partially answer that. I know Todd Allen, students, I'm not sure if you've met Todd, but he's our general counsel for the department. He might be able to kind of partially tackle that question for you.
Well, I can give you a first blush, and then Todd can correct me, because that's usually the way it works with my lawyer here in the office. But the parents and student already signed a permission form that acknowledges the risk of playing sports, period. So they've already acknowledged that risk. But in Kentucky, our courts are very receptive to new business. It's probably as tactful as I can put it. There's not a lot of restriction. There's actually a lot of debate about whether or not risk forms are even worth the paper they're printed on. Some districts are doing that. It's a strategic decision, but that's why when you give guidance to districts, just like Tony and Kevin and the staff at KDE gave a lot of guidance about going back to school, they decide which parts they want to utilize, which parts they want to risk, which parts they want to do this. I think it's the same thing with athletic guidance. Sports is not a risk-free business, period. Again, we're fortunate. And it would likely change our course if we were to find scientific data that athlete-to-athlete transmission was occurring. But it's also very tough with this virus to pinpoint any moment, the exact moment anyone gets it. You may know you were in this environment, and so were 5 other people, but you still don't know that one seeding moment. But that's for the lawyers to haggle out. With the paperwork is already there in terms of a permission form. It's state required, not just us, but state regulation required. And some districts have added layers on top of that. But I can tell you from the feedback we got this summer, the majority of the parents said it's whatever it takes. Whether it will mask up, we'll sign forms, we don't care. So that's not necessarily a legal answer, but I'm sure if Todd were here, he would also say, I can't give you legal advice, but I can tell you what the statute says.
That's right. Thank you, Commissioner Tackett. You stole my thunder. That is correct. I can't give you legal advice. I will give you the answer that I think lawyers often gives, and that is it depends. All of these are very fact specific situations. So the facts of each situation will be very important in determining any type of liability decision or outcome that may result. As Commissioner Tackett indicated, playing sports is not risk free, and we've acknowledged that for years, that there are risks that come along with playing sports. COVID-19, there are risks that we know of, and there are still risks that we don't know about because it is such a new virus. So one thing that would be important, one of those fact determinations would be trying to trace how the virus transmitted. And because this virus transmits so easily and is spreading among communities, it may be difficult to pinpoint whether the virus was transmitted to an athlete in a conditioning setting, in a weight room, whether it was on the field, whether it was in a classroom, or whether it wasn't in a school-related or extracurricular activity setting at all. So overall, the answer is it depends. Very, very fact intensive based on each situation.
Todd, if I can add one thing, and please comment if I'm wrong. I think one of the things the students can help with, and all students can help with, though, is when you see something in guidance. For example, if you are supposed to be on the bench when you're not playing, if you're supposed to be on the bench with a mask, and your school or coaches are not enforcing that, even though that's in the guidance, that is probably a risky thing. So even helping hold the adults around you accountable is good. Coach, aren't we supposed to be wearing masks? Coach, aren't we supposed to be doing distancing wherever we can? I think that's really good and helps your district. Now, I don't know, Todd, if you agree or not, but I think
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that extends even beyond extracurriculars and sports. I think it extends into the classroom and school community as well. Peer pressure can be powerful, and we can use it in a positive manner to get everybody wearing masks, social distancing, and sanitizing so that we can keep schools open, so that we can keep sports going, and so that we can try to get to some level of normalcy as we live through the COVID-19 situation.
Absolutely. I echo that as well. Gavin, did you want to add something, or do you have a question?
No, I've just got something to add. I want to touch on something Jack said. He mentioned that sports build enthusiasm. And personally, I think that a lot of students in my school looked more forward to, like, if sports were still going to happen rather than if school was going to open. I think they really enjoy sports about, like, the whole, like, school spirit. And also, I think my school seems to be doing pretty good about the masks and social distancing at the practices and, like, the games and the meets. I run cross country, and, well, my dad's the coach, so I'm kind of biased, but he's been doing pretty good about it. I know a lot of the runners don't want to wear masks, but they do before we start running. And once we start running, we take them off and we put them down, and then we come back and put them back on. And they still comply with that because they respect the coach. And I think I just thought there was something that I could say.
Oh, I appreciate that. That's a good comment. Drake?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Tackett. I know I and my peers are very grateful for what you've done. I just wanted to say, due to the protocol in my district, if a student tests positive for COVID-19, I've heard many people advise to just not get tested. If you have symptoms, just stay home and don't get a test. And I received a little bit of backlash last week when I had to get tested from student athletes, and understandably so. They were worried about what would happen if my test was positive and they had to go home because I was in person with school. And I was just wondering, like, what's the most proactive thing as we weigh the importance of monitoring COVID-19 cases and the mental state of our youth in the state?
Well, it's interesting you bring it up that way, because one of the things that we've heard already from people is peer pressure to not test. And we're trying to we've actually got a couple of different states working together on this. trying to get at an educational piece. The bottom line is, if you have symptoms, and I'm preaching to the choir, but if you have symptoms and are potentially spreading it, you're risking not just sports. You're risking the health of everybody around you. You're risking your peers. You're risking in-person instruction. And at some point, the reason you all are on this group as assembled is you know better. The challenge is, and I saw a comment in the chat box about the challenge of going up to somebody and saying, hey, put your mask on. It's a threadbare line you walk, because you're trying to do it. My mother gave me, long before I got to be an adult, she gave me a poem called The Man in the Glass. And if you haven't read it, you ought to read it. But it basically says, if you're true to the person looking back at you in the mirror, if you're true to them, then you're going to be fine. And, for me, I'm going to tell you did the right thing. Because, and yes, it is risky. It is potential. I know a person who, matter of fact, he's very close to our office. He's in the family of families that work in our small office here that just got a positive test. And he's devastated, because he feels like that, number one, he's lost 10 days to 2 weeks of play. Number two, he may have infected others. But this virus, there's, unfortunately, and what has to be the education point from an athletic standpoint is, and Todd hit on it perfect from a legal answer. I'm going to translate it to science. You can't say that if you don't do X, you will not get COVID. You just don't know. So you did the right thing, and people that do the right thing should always be commended and should always be mindful of that. There will always be, though, it's no different than the person, I'll guarantee you, somebody, not in this group, but somebody knew who those people were that were trying to sabotage the online learning in Jefferson County the first week of school. They knew somebody. Oh, but they didn't want to rat them out. They didn't want to say anything. There's the fellowship with that. And you all are the leaders that can break that ice and say, no, hold it. We can't do that. And you did it with testing, and you should be very proud. You did the right thing. And one of the things that we should look at, I challenge all of you to do this. We touch 7 states, and we have a very similar population to about 3 of them. And our COVID numbers really worry about it. They really do. But yet our COVID numbers are a whole lot less than everybody else's. Why? Because we very early on adapted to regular testing. Get out there and get yourself tested. Let's make sure we don't become an asymptomatic spreader. We as a state bought into that. So I believe the reason Kentucky's case numbers and death numbers are as low as they are, even though they might be frightful to some people, the reason they're as low as they are is because we did that. You did the right thing.
I have to agree. I'm not an educator. I'm a communicator, obviously. So I will always argue that the best mode of communication is just to communicate. And I don't know if Dr. Young wants to offer any with her, if she's still on, if she wants to offer any advice to you all. But I just think doing what you did was it was a very strong statement, and it was a good call. Sophia, you also mentioned that you've seen some pushback reminding peers and staff about masking, and that it's resulted in a negative experience. Have any of you all seen that as well? I know I've seen some comments through social media or not. So unfortunately, everybody, social media can be a negative, as we all know. So that seems to be where a lot of my comments are. So I'm happy to hear that you're not receiving a lot of negative feedback on that.
Tony,
if you want to go ahead, if someone wants to speak up.
Yeah, it's Lou. I would just add, just echo what Commissioner Tackett said to Drake. Good for you. Your folks, your guardians, they're going to be really concerned about your health this fall as you move forward in sports. This is a time for all of our families to help you guys over those peer pressure humps and to do exactly what you just did, Drake. I'm always comforted when I hear Dr. Tackett talk about things like no student-to-student athlete transmission. As the virus unfolds and we know more about it, we just have to follow that science. And so kids do too. you can't ignore something that could be a really serious illness on the horizon for a young athlete. And so the more you guys lock arms and agree to do the right thing, just like Drake did, and to encourage, as Commissioner Tackett advocated, just to encourage all the right practices, masking, social distancing, taking it seriously, what Jack was saying about the long distance runners. All of that stuff is really important as you move forward. This is a time for you guys to be just as courageous as Commissioner Tackett and Commissioner Glass and the adults are in this situation. So you'll look back on this time and really think about the adulting that you're having to participate in as young people these days. So just keep up that positive. Peer pressure is the antidote to some of those negative behaviors. And those same people who would be pushing you not to test would feel terrible if in fact they caused someone not to test and that person became really, really ill and then in turn infected other people. So there's a bigger picture, a higher moral ground at play here. And I think the way you thought about that, Drake, is a model for all of us.
Gracie, did you want to add?
I have had my hand raised for a while. I don't even completely remember what I was going to add.
Okay,
but
sorry.
You're too young for that.
The only thing I had to add was about sports and things. A lot of our sports got moved to random times in the year where other sports would usually be, and a lot of stuff like that. But I have most of my family, and I'm actually from Eastern Kentucky, and I think my cousin's school, and she's here, they're having them practice band at home, practice their sports at home, stuff like that. And she's from Wolf and Powell County. And my brother and sister who go to Hardin County Public Schools, actually, I don't think they've even been offered very many things. But they have kind of left me personally in the dark about what we're going to do mask wise and what sports they aren't going to be able to allow. And they just haven't, they've been very vague.
Okay, sounds good. Appreciate that feedback. Sophia?
So, I am a little bit concerned going forward, actually more about like the socialization surrounding sports, less than like the actual players. Especially here, like on a college campus, we've got our first game coming up, and I'm really worried about typically like tailgating and stuff that happens before games. And so far, we're seeing mainly the concentration of COVID cases to students in fraternities and sororities, which definitely have a culture of partying before games. So I'm really concerned about the spread that we're going to start potentially seeing surrounding like the socialization and culture surrounding games rather than the actual playing. So I was just wondering if there's any sort of advice, especially like at home, like we see sports teams all getting together at restaurants and eating like team meals together. So is there any sort of guidance with that to try and prevent different teams kind of getting together in that social setting where it could be spread?
Well, I think one thing that we've acknowledged in the feedback we've gotten from the schools is that the group that's been together at practice, and don't let me go too random on this, but if you go back to the first days of the summer when people were starting to do activities, the idea was to keep the same group together. So if you've got the same group together that's been practicing and they then go for a meal, you're probably better off than if that group of 40 went to 4 different places, 10 each, because now they've broken their cohort, as they like to say. So you probably don't need to worry as much about that. Now, the game day experience is a big challenge. That's why, I pay a decent check every year to UK for season football tickets that include tailgating. I just got the notice this week that I won't be offered that privilege. And some people have had to make some really tough decisions on that. Administrators have had to, and I think it's fantastic that the universities have took the leadership. I have not followed what Western's doing. The challenge with all of this, and I know that Lieutenant Governor Coleman's not on here anymore, but I've heard the frustration in her voice so many times as she and I have talked, and their staff. Somewhere this became political, and in some areas that they are diehard one way or the other. There seems to be less compliance than others. It's a challenging thing, and I understand why you're worried. I'm married to somebody who, because of lung cancer nearly 30 years ago, only has one lung, so we tiptoe everywhere we go. I mean, we're really careful, but we're trying to navigate it without being totally just ambivalent to the circumstances, without just plowing forward. Think about it. I think you brought up 2 or 3 situations that people just have to think through. If that group has always been together, it's probably okay. But I'm not going to commingle with them. I'm not going to go and sit at that table with those 40 people. That's what I'll avoid doing. Whether they do it and stay among themselves, they don't necessarily spread. The key is to find your reliable sources of information, the CDC, and you have to pick your own outlets for news. Unfortunately, there used to be several news people you could say, well, they're accurate, and they're not. Right now, if you can do that, would you please share how you're doing that? Because I can't figure out who exactly is accurate. But just study the science, study the intellectual stuff that has been vetted. As Dr. Young would tell you, when you get into university publications and it's already been subject to peer review and publish, and that you can pretty well count on that having some factual basis. But here's the problem. That takes a while. So we're kind of having to, with COVID, we're all having to learn to fly an airplane while we're on it, or learn to build an airplane while we're on it. It's hard. But I'm glad that people your age are concerned, because unfortunately you all get a reputation as carefree and not caring. And I think the vast majority of you all care very much. And it's just a few people that don't care that get all the publicity.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time this morning, Julian, to share with our students. And I know that you'll, every time we ask you to come and talk to our advisory groups, you're always willing to do so. And I know that they appreciate you doing that. Dr. Glass?
Yeah, thanks, Tony, and thanks, Julian. I appreciate you being on. I just had one thing to add around the challenge of sort of groups getting together and people letting their guard down. Just a story from the district that I came from. I was the superintendent in Jeffco, Jefferson County, Colorado. They call it Jeffco there. It's sort of the western third of the Denver metro area. One of the things that we worked to put in place this August was graduations for our seniors that missed their graduations in the spring, and they really wanted an in-person graduation. So we worked with the public health department on all of the procedures and how we would space the students out, how everyone would wear masks, hand gel everywhere, changing microphone covers. I mean, there were and in the stands, how we would space out groups of individuals that were present in the stands at the graduation. All of this, all of these procedures and layers that were put in place to keep our graduation safe and keep them from being a vector by which the virus sort of spread in the community. And there was just an extraordinary amount of planning and thinking that went into that. And I remember that we had our first one, and it went great. The schools, the students, or the graduates, the families, everybody followed all the steps, did everything right. And then as soon as we finished, I remember walking out of the graduation, and there were like 200 people in a big group outside. It's like they got through the graduation, they did everything right, and as soon as they went out into the parking lot, the mask came off. People are hugging, they're swirling around in big groups, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like you cannot let your guard down. And then we had to go back, and then we had to come up with procedures. All right, when the graduation is over, here's how we're going to manage getting everybody to their car. Here's how we're going to manage keeping these non-familiar group familial groups from congregating together. So it's just a story about you have to plan for everything that you can, but also when things come up that you didn't anticipate, you have to keep revising your procedures and getting better, because the virus is always looking for an opportunity when we let our guard down to make that transmission. So I think that, much of that applies to the situations that we're dealing with now as schools come back together and reopen for in-person learning, as our sporting events and other sort of congregational activities restart. We're going to get a lot right. And there's going to be some things that we're going to learn. There are going to be mistakes that we make, and we always have to be willing to have the courage to stand up and say, hey, we can do better about this, or we can be better about this.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. And then I will take one more comment, and then we will get on to our last item of agenda, which is the talking about how we're going to appoint our student member on the Kentucky Board of Education. Go ahead, Caleb.
Commissioner Glass, I actually just wanted to add to what you said about the graduation ceremony. So last year, our school was, we really, our administrators really prioritized that graduation experience toward the end. And they, wanted our class of 2020 seniors to be able to experience as close to normal what a graduation is. And so we actually hosted a drive-through graduation, and it went very well. Of course, no one gathered in the school parking lot or anything like that, but all over social media, I saw pictures of people gathered at the BP and at McDonald's and like place, just separate from the school. And so there was definitely an issue there. And another issue that I saw stemmed from the fact that at the time we did not have many cases in Breathitt County. Our numbers were low. And so I think a lot of people were just apathetic because they hadn't experienced it in the same way that other, urban centers have. And so, matter of fact, I've seen people from, nurses from our community have traveled to New York and have experienced the virus in that atmosphere, whereas people here have not experienced things at that large magnitude. And so I think that's one of our biggest issues, given that, rural areas don't have as many cases and they're not as familiar with these types of things as urban centers are. So thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. I know Julian had to step off, so I think that was a good conversation. All right, so next we're going to go, and I know that we have a lot of seniors on this call, but I hope that you all can still participate. I promise this will not take very long. I just wanted to go over what we have come up with in terms of the selection and how we're going to go about this appointing a student member to the Kentucky Board of Education. So as you are aware, that we let you know that the governor earlier, I think it was in the summertime, had signed, I can't remember, the words are not coming to me, but adding a student member to the Kentucky Board of Education, basically, and the student would serve a 2-year term. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So that would mean that if you are a sophomore or a junior right now, you would be eligible to apply for this position. And when I say apply, that's a really a soft word, because you've already applied for this council. So you'll just have to fill out a short application. Hold on, let me know when you see my screen, because that way I'll stop babbling here. And then I also will have your exit slip too while I'm working on getting this thing loaded here. Give me a second. I'm not sure why this is not loading. Well, maybe it's tired. Hold on, let me see if I can get here. I think this is it. I think I've got it. Let me know when you can see it.
I can see it.
Perfect. So I'm going to read it. Basically, the Department of Education is proud to offer this student leadership position and join the many states across the United States that have student representatives on their state board of education. We believe it's an important and timely step as we move forward in our commitment to student engagement and empowerment statewide. So as I mentioned, the eligibility, you must be enrolled in a Kentucky public school and be an active member of this advisory council. And you also must be a sophomore or junior in good standing at the time of the appointment to the Kentucky Board of Education. As I mentioned, it is an appointment by the governor. So this would go through, I'm not sure if Todd is still on. I think he may have had to hop off, but what would happen is we would get your name to the governor's office, and then it would come through as an actual appointment to the Board of Education. The term of office would be a 2-year term. This would be a non-voting ex officio member. So you would be very much like the teacher member that we have on our board. Just her name is Allison Sloan, and you would also just be like the lieutenant governor. She is an ex officio, as well as Dr. Erin Thompson, who is our president of CPE. So very, very important voices on our State Board of Education. You would begin with the date of service would begin on October 1st and would end through the end of of August. I guess it would be August of 2021, all of that, or 2022, sorry. The time requirements, and I want to be very clear on this because I know many of you are involved in a lot of activities. The time requirement is going to be at least 2 successive school days every other month to attend regular KBE meetings. They are usually in Frankfurt. You will need to make sure that you are able to plan sufficient time to review the agenda materials in advance of the meeting, and some additional time to handle other board-related business, as well as to attend selected student meetings, workshops, and other conferences that may come up. Obviously, during COVID-19, our meetings have been held virtually, consistent with state and local public health orders. And we have also talked as a department that if needed, the student member of the KBE will be allowed to attend these meetings virtually if needed for academic and distance purposes. Because it does take a lot of time, and if you are appointed and are coming from a long distance, we certainly don't want your academics to suffer as a result of your participation on the Board of Education. So what is expected from a student member? We want you to be prepared for these meetings by reviewing the materials for every board meeting. We want you to be able to attend every meeting and to participate and engage in discussions and to promote the interest and support for education in Kentucky. We expect you to be courteous and respectful of public suggestions and complaints, and refer them to appropriate parties. And that's particularly staff people that you will get to know here at the department, many of whom you've already met in the 3 short months that you've been on this council, and others that have been on the council a little bit longer. We want you to work harmoniously with other board members and agencies of the Commonwealth and to become familiar with state laws, policies, and regulations, and really just to kind of comply with policy manuals and to accept the majority vote in all cases and give support to whatever resulting policy comes out of that vote. We believe that this opportunity will give whoever is appointed incredible experience and insight into educational policy in Kentucky. You will be even more familiar with state laws and policies and regulations as they relate to education. You will become more knowledgeable about education issues as they relate not just to Kentucky, but also the nation. You will be able to make a difference in educational policy here in the Commonwealth. You will be paired and have a mentoring relationship with a state board member, and also have an opportunity to gain additional job connections and to learn about career choices. Your expenses, excuse me, when regular person meetings resume, the KBE will cover expenses for lodging and meals, an amount allowed by state regulations. So here is the meat of how you would apply, and it's pretty simple. You basically just need to read the description of the position carefully, and I want you all to look over those who are eligible. I think earlier in the year I had asked 10 of you had indicated that you were interested in this. I know the school year has started, and so I want you to just kind of read over this application. I will send it over to, or this information. I want you to be able to, look it over, fully understand the time requirement, and that serving on the board would add to your workload and schedule. and also give serious consideration to the frequent travel requirements of the position. If you qualify for the student member position and wish to apply, I just need you to complete the application form, which I will send to you this week. Actually, it'll be sent to you by the end of the day today. You will just simply write a letter of interest and send your completed application to me. And I will just ask for you to do all of that by the end of the day this Friday. And I just want you to know the selection process will be received as long as you get the applications in by the indicated deadline. There will also be a parent and a school support letter that will need to be signed. I'm not necessarily worried about getting those signed by the deadline because most of your parents and your schools have already signed off. And allowing you to participate in the council, I will have a verbal conversation with them and get those forms over to them. I want you to focus on what you need to do to apply for to fill out this application into me. The names of each student who will successfully complete the application procedure on time with the parent and school support will be collected. And essentially, we are going to select a name from a hat. Is what's going to happen. There's not going to be a scoring process or anything of that nature. Whoever is interested and meets the requirements will just draw. It'll be a drawing, and you will be appointed. We will submit your name to the governor, and you will be appointed as the first student representative on the Kentucky Board of Education. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take those. I think that Jennifer Frager is still with us. Jennifer, are you still on?
I am sorry. When you hit mute, it never seems to to work just the way you intend, does it?
No, it doesn't. And same thing with pulling up documents. It seems like you have them ready to go. So I'm not sure if you all have met Jennifer before, but she usually hangs out at our meetings. Jennifer Fraker it works with us in the commissioner's office and does a lot of work with the state board. Did I cover all of that correctly? Do you want to add anything?
You did very eloquently. We're very excited. We will now be one of 24 states to have a student member on the board, and that's a great honor and testament to your exceptional character across the state. So we're really excited and look forward to working with you all.
Dr. Glass?
I'll just echo those words from Jennifer. This is an exciting addition to the state board, and going back to where we started, having the presence of a student in these conversations, I think, is going to positively influence the dialogue and the decisions that are made.
Awesome. Let's see, do we have any questions or obviously if you have, I want you to look at this, and if you have any questions, you certainly can send me an email or reach out to me privately, or if anything comes up, you want your parents to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Jennifer can answer any questions. We are here to help you through the process. So just let me know what we can do. And then real quick, I just wanted to touch base with you all on any project work that you've been doing. Has anybody had any luck with their coverings for kids? Anna, I know you've been working on something. Did you want to share with what you've been working on?
Yes, I can. So recently I talked to my superintendent about a mask drive at different schools in my county. I have made a proposal for it, and it has been okayed. So now we're just going to send it out to principals so they can review it, and then also send it out to local businesses so that way they can contribute if they want to.
That's great. I'm glad to hear it. Anastasia?
Miles and I have been reaching out to our superintendent. He got us in touch with someone who is working on this specifically. We had to communicate with a few other people, so right now we're about to reach out again to the person that we need to talk to and then see how we can help.
Okay. Well, let me know, because you said Oldham County is going back tomorrow for elementary. So just let me know, and we can, if you need help with their superintendent and with the masks. I'm not sure what their PPE supply is, but let us know how we can help with that as well. Okay.
I will.
Thank you. Caleb?
So when it comes to the mask drive, I have told you all several times that our school district has provided these masks for us, 2 per student, for students who are attending in person. So as of right now, we've already met the needs that need to be met in that regard. Lately, though, at school, I have been stopping by every now and then discussing some things with my principal, and I'm very thankful that he's been willing to really bring and incorporate student voice. So actually today, after I get off from here, I'm going to go and meet with him, and we're going to work on a student advisory council plan for our school, and he's actually willing to appoint a non-voting member to his site-based decision-making council. So we're going to discuss that. And I'm really, really excited to see where, where that guides discussions at our school. And then also, I apologize for any background noise. Something's always going on here at my house. It's, I think right now they're actually, matter of fact, they're putting new gutters on. I don't even know. Anyway, so I've been working on these videos, and we've done like video projects. We talk about, each video talks about a different topic. So we have one that talks about virtual learning, one that talks about the importance of wearing masks, hand washing, one that talks about the meal plan that we have in place. And so I'm really grateful, we've been able to work on that project. And I've also worked on some projects with the elementary schools in my area as well, in the same regard, discussing those important topics as we move forward. So yeah, once again, I'm sorry for any background noise. Thank you all.
No worries. I couldn't even hear it. So I've got a fan going because I'm not entirely sure that they have air conditioning working at the KDE building. So anyway, I'm really, really excited to hear that your local superintendent is considering a non-voting student member to the SBDM. I think that's amazing. So
I'm sorry, I just want to say it's actually my principal. I haven't discussed.
Principal, yeah.
I haven't
Oh,
discussed.
yes, that's right. I forgot. SBDM principal. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I haven't discussed this with my superintendent, though. I'm going to see how things move, the direction that things move at my school, and then I'm considering that later on down the road. So
Perfect. Great. All right, guys. Well, we have about 5 minutes left. I was going to have Dr. Glass close us out, unless I do have another hand raised. Hold up. I'm sorry. Let me see here. Who else had a hand raised there? I missed.
Oh,
nope.
that was me.
Oh, gotcha. Gavin, did you want to mention something?
Yeah. So I got the coverings for kids thing. I got that in my district. I just reached out to the superintendent, and she got back to me pretty fast. I did it through the Chromebook drive because every student in my district has their own Chromebook because we're a small district. So as they went to get that, we had an option for you to drop off masks if you had any extras. So we collected them mainly there. And since our school hasn't gone really back in yet, we've got like a half hybrid plan or something going on right now. But once we go fully back in, I'll probably have a drive at every school going on through there. But so far, I just did it through the Chromebook drive, but I just wanted to update you on that.
No, perfect. And I want to make sure if you guys can share pictures too, when you all are, a collection of masks or anything with your projects, please be sure to either text those to me or email them to me or share them on the group me, so that we can share those on social media and just share the work that you all are doing, because it's very powerful and impactful in being able to use your voice. So absolutely. And I just want to make sure, I know some of you are on the group me, but if you have not been able to access the group me, let me know, shoot me an email, and I'll make sure to add you. I did not know that Jack was not on there. So I added him, let me know, and we can get you added to that. And I will have Dr. Glass close us out.
Well, thanks, Tony, to you for coordinating and running this meeting. I have heard you speak so highly of this group and was excited to get to meet them. And now I understand why you're so excited about them as well. I will be brief and just say thanks to all of you for being on. I've enjoyed the conversation and learned a lot from you. And I look forward to continuing to learn with you and from you as we work together going forward. So thanks, everybody. Have a great day and stay safe. Wash your hands, wear that mask, and take care of each other.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.